When I ask harp learners what they find tricky about reading music on the harp, this one answer keeps coming back again and again: the bass clef. If you're a harpist who's wondering why the bass clef feels so much harder, and if you're ever going to learn to read the left-hand notes fluently, you've come to the right place. I'm Zuzanna, and I'm a harpist, a harp teacher, and the creator of the online course Reading Music for Harp. Today I want to talk about why bass clef can be challenging to master and what you can do to make it easier. So why does the bass clef feel so much harder? When you think of harp music, you may find that in a lot of pieces you often get some kind of melody in your right hand, while the left hand complements what happens in the right. Also, very often your right hand gets a lot more notes than the left hand has to play. What this means in practice is that we often don't see the notes in the bass clef as often as we do for the treble clef, and we get fewer opportunities to practice recognizing them. On the harp, it's also very common for the right hand part to be more technically challenging, which means we need to spend more time practicing that top line on its own and doing more repetitions. Again, this means we get less time to spend with the bass clef and, so to say, less exposure to the notes in the bass clef. And if you get fewer chances to practice something, naturally it will take you longer to learn this particular skill. This is something that you may find true regardless whether harp is your first instrument or if you have had some previous musical experience on another instrument, but perhaps reading only a single line. By the way, I'm really curious which of these is true for you. Is the harp your first instrument and you're new to both bass and treble clef, or have you played another instrument before you picked up the harp? Let me know in the comments. Regardless what your journey looked like, there is one other reason behind the bass clef struggles that has nothing to do with your situation and everything to do with how harp music is written. Like I said before, on the harp you will see lots of pieces where right hand is in charge of the melody and left hand is just giving us the hint of the harmony, for example by playing only one or two notes per bar. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It sounds really lovely, and if you're a beginner or an intermediate player, pieces like that are a lot more manageable than if you had each hand being very busy. The challenge that I'd like you to be aware of is that pieces like those can make your left hand notes feel very disconnected. If your left hand gets just one note in a bar and then a big gap, while right hand is busy with the melody, you will naturally shift your focus to that upper line. And then when the time comes to play the left hand, by then your hand might have come off the strings or even move away from the harp. Perhaps at that point you may not remember what was the last note that left hand played, and even if all your hand needs to do is to play again the same string, it may happen that you'll look at it as if you haven't just played it, and as if it was just one more note that you still need to work out. So as you can see, the task that you and your left hand are facing is not as straightforward, and even if you're doing all the right things, these bass clef notes could be not so easy to learn. But the good news is that there are a few things that you can do to bring your left hand up to speed with what it needs to do, and I'm going to share with you 5 tips that will help you get there. My tip number 1. If you haven't already, watch my free video training on reading music. You'll find the link in the description of this episode of Coffee Break Harp. It takes just 15 minutes and it shows you a different way of thinking about the treble and the bass clef and where you can see how they are connected. For many learners, bass clef feels like something completely separate from what we're doing on the upper line, and that can make you feel like working out the left-hand notes is a lot of extra work. But when you're aware of how the two are connected, you can take advantage of all the skills that you've already learned with the treble clef and then read both lines with more confidence. So make sure you follow that link in the description and check out this free training where I'm showing you how to do it. Tip number 2. Before you even play anything, take a look at the left-hand part and see if you can spot any patterns. Even if what you look at feels like a random bunch of notes, for a start, try to look for things that may be repeating. Can you see which notes happen more frequently than the others? And if so, where are they? If you need some help working out the notes, you can use the cheat sheet that comes with my free video training that I mentioned earlier. Then you can even use it to mark the notes that are causing you some trouble so you can find them more easily next time they come up in your pieces. If you want to learn more about some of the basic patterns that you can find in your music, check out one of my earlier videos where I talked about creating the connections between your fingers and the harp strings, and also teaching your hands how to go to the right places on the harp. I'll put it for you here and in the description of this video. Tip number 3. Spend some time practicing just the left hand and reading the bass clef. Be aware of the patterns that you've discovered and remind your left hand what it needs to do. For example, go back to the string you played before, or move 2 strings down and then 1 string up. If in your pieces the left hand is not very busy or has fewer notes to play than the right hand, you may need some more practice in recognizing the bass clef notes. Which is why my tip number 4 is to grab some pieces that you're not working on at the moment or some exercises for sight reading and spend some time working out the notes in the bass clef there. If you only have a few minutes, do just a few bars. It really doesn't have to be serious practice like you do on your other pieces, but because we usually just don't get enough bass clef notes to learn them quickly by just playing the pieces, it will really help if you can go through some more in the meantime. Now, if you'd like some help with making sure that you get enough bass clef practice and also learn more about other skills that you need to read music with confidence, make sure you check out my online course, Reading Music for Harp. Apart from reading notes in both bass and treble clef, you'll get to practice other important skills like recognizing patterns, placing your hands early, playing in rhythm, and strategies for learning new pieces. If this is something you want to learn more about, check out the link in the description of this episode and let me know in the comments if you have any questions at all. And now for tip number 5. This one will be really important, especially when you play one of these pieces where left hand only gets 1 or 2 notes a bar and then faces big gaps until it plays again. But it will be also super helpful whenever you're working on putting your hands together. Now that you're aware of your left hand patterns, make sure that every time your left hand plays, you place it as fast as you can on the next note or a group of notes. Now, I want to make sure that you get me right. This doesn't mean that you have to play faster. In fact, this is one of the strategies that I talked about in my slow practice video because the two go so well together. The combination of playing slow and placing fast does wonders, both when it comes to the left hand and playing hands together. Most importantly, it helps you to stay aware of what happens in the left hand, to keep following the patterns that you discovered in the bass clef, and to making your journey through your pieces so much easier. So there you have it, all my tips about the bass clef and how to make it easier to manage. Let me know in the comments now, what was your journey with the bass clef on the harp and which of these tips are you going to try first to make it better? Let me know how you get on. I love hearing from you and learning about your progress. Also make sure to subscribe Coffee Break Harp for more tips and advice on all things harp. I will see you here with another episode very soon. Take care for now. Bye!